Bills fan, I have been wanting this ever since Josh Allen has been the quarterback for this organization, since Sean McDermott took over, since Brandon Beane took over the front office. And I've said I need an offseason where I go into week one and I feel so comfortable about this roster from not only the starters, but also the players that we have in the depth department. Because many of us, I think, can agree that the Achilles heel for Buffalo, as far as our postseason blunders, have always resorted into one specific downfall. And that was seeing some starters go down, and the significant drop off from talent was such a massive gap that we virtually stood no chance. Think about the AFC Championship last year, where we saw Christian Benford get carted off of the field, our CB1 completely gone, and we end up seeing Kyer Elam get cooked by Xavier Worthy for the following three quarters. Even reflecting back 2 years ago when we lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional, where we played that game without three key defensive pieces. Now, while I think some of us had our reservations on this draft class, some of us had our reservations during some of the players we were able to keep and bring in via free agency, you're damn right. I actually feel the most comfortable that I have with this roster in quite some time, with starters that I think that have a lot of upside into excelling right within this system, both offensively and defensively, and also from a depth perspective. Like, say, for example, that we ultimately end up hitting an injury bug, or we end up getting greeted with a dark cloud of bad luck when it comes into our starters not being able to play. I actually feel somewhat reasonable when it comes into our depth, barring any sort of absolute emergency. So, on today's episode, I actually have the full depth chart pulled up for the Buffalo Bills, and we are going to discuss and attempt to identify any position group in which that we feel still a bit uncomfortable with. I did have an opportunity of skimming through it prior to going live, and I got to tell you, I think a lot of us are going to feel very confident and very pleased with how this roster has been constructed. On paper, I think this Buffalo Bills team has zero excuse, even if an injury bug does hit in 2025, to actually end up going all the damn way. Damn, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice, folks, if we could sort of transition this confidence into our bank accounts and buy a ticket right up to Buffalo after the Super Bowl to enjoy the damn parade? It's the off season. All of us have every single right to be very excited. Without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this depth chart and let's have a conversation. Folks, welcome to the Don Mafia Report. I am your host, Dan Mitchell. I put out videos and live streams about the Buffalo Bills and the NFL each and every single day. If, for example, you are about that life, please do me a favor. And when you subscribe, make sure you turn on bell notifications, because as you will notice, for the first 15 to 20 minutes of each and every single one of my streams, I discuss the topic at hand. And then for the remainder of the episode, I end up transitioning to my live chat audience where they take control of the conversation via a Q&A segment. So if you are currently watching the replay of this video, or you are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, highly recommend you come find me over on YouTube, so that way you could be a part of the conversation. But damn, man, listen, it's funny because how one particular wide receiver could be added to this roster in late free agency can make me feel this confident and completely change my tune of um, my comfortability level within this organization is absolutely crazy. Us signing Elijah Moore yesterday really has opened up so many different things, so many different possibilities in my head. And I think we came to the conclusion last night where a lot of us wanted Jalen Royals. A lot of us wanted Kyle Williams, as did I, right? Like, they were my two favorite wide receivers in the class. And then unfortunately, we see both of those targets go to one of our bitter rivals, right? You had Royals go over to the Kansas City Chiefs, and then ultimately you had Kyle Williams go to a divisional rival in the New England Patriots. But I got to tell you what, right? The more and more that I think about it, in Elijah Moore, who is still 26 years old, who has never had a quality quarterback, has never had a quality offensive coordinator, is far and beyond a better option than a day three wide receiver in the NFL draft. I feel a bit more comfortable in that overall sense. But we will get to the wide receiver portion. Let's go on ahead and go position by position and discuss our comfortability level with each and every single route. Starting off a quarterback, obviously, you do have Josh Allen. How many games has he started in a row? Like 100? I'm going to knock on wood, right? Because I don't think any of us want to see a world where Josh Allen could potentially miss a couple of games. Because, like most NFL organizations, I know some of us are very often enamored on the idea of having a quality QB2. But I got to tell you something, folks. There is such a significant drop off from a QB1 to a QB2 all across the league. I could care less if you have the best quarterback two in the league. Only about 2 to 3 teams can confidently say that they can trust the QB2 to take the reins of an organization and say that QB1 is out for 3 to 4 games, that they're confident that they can win at least 50% of those. As much as we like to give some statements on how we feel about Mitchell Trubisky, I still kind of have Mitchell Trubisky as an upper echelon QB2 within this league. Is he a quality QB1? Absolutely not. But I think that I could trust him based off of how this offense is molded, based off of the wide receivers and their yak production capabilities, that I think that he would be a pretty solid insurance policy. I was not an advocate for drafting a quarterback this year, right in the draft. I didn't really think it was a necessity. But as far as the QB room, come on. Like, we have the reigning MVP. I feel like he is the DNA of this offense, and I'm completely fine with it. Now, moving on, we have James Cook, we have Ray Davis, we have Ty Johnson, and then we also need to include Reggie Gilliam, who will be our fullback this year. That is likely going to be the 4 spots from the running back position. Good news, because we did hear a positive tidbit from Brandon Beane while he was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He was obviously addressing his beef with the radio station, but then also something that slipped in, I feel like a lot of us missed with all of the Elijah Moore discussion, is that Beane even ended up confirming that James Cook is going to be playing for the Buffalo Bills this year, and they are still currently in negotiations, where he hopes that he could find a long-term deal to keep this back on said roster. So I'm liking this. You have James Cook. You have Ray Davis, who really took advantage of some of the limited opportunities he had last year. Ty Johnson, speedy running back, which was once our leading receiver in a couple of games in 2025. Running back class is absolutely stout. Now we come in to the wide receiver position. And I got to tell you what, this right here is one of the perfect collections as far as traits you could look for in a wide receiver room. You have Khalil Shakir, who's one of the most slept on slot wide receivers in the NFL. He has a tremendous route tree. He has great separation. He's reasonably fast, has a great catch percentage, drops very few passes from Josh Allen. He is wide receiver number 1. He is wide receiver number 1. A slot can be a wide receiver number 1. There's so many teams who have this as part of their identity. Next up, you have Keon Coleman. He is our contested catch guy. We needed that person. I have a feeling he's about to take the next step up as far as a red zone threat. And then Joshua Palmer, who many of us were sort of trying to rack our brains around. Who is he replacing? Like, what kind of skill set does he provide to this team? Is it a Mac Hollins, right? No, it's not. It is more so of a cheaper and a younger Amari Cooper as far as the skill set that he provides, right? Very similar speed, very similar build, has an incredible route tree. He wins by separation. Josh Palmer is our Amari Cooper replacement, cheaper and also younger. Next up, obviously, you have Curtis Samuel, who I think ended up having a great second half of the season once he got past his turf toe injury. He's going to be like our gadget guy, right? Our sort of, I'd say, Isaiah McKenzie-esque type player. And then afterwards, you finally have our speed guy in Elijah Moore. 4.35 40. Yes, he's better in the slot, but he has spent the vast majority of his career out on the perimeter. Solid addition. We needed this type of player in this wide receiver room. I'm very, very happy about it, right? So, like, all 5 of those guys are honestly in a great position. I feel very comfortable with this wide receiver room now that we have that one player that has that specific trait that we were looking for. Say that we go with 6 wide receivers. I have a feeling that we're going to. It all depends on who brings more to the table. Is that Laviska Shenault, Shavers, and or Virgil, and or Caden Prather or KJ Hamler, who is going to bring the most to the table when it comes into special team capabilities, right? Like, who is going to bring the most value to that unit? That is what ultimately ends up deciding this final spot within the wide receiver room. So we will keep you there. But overall, first five on the depth chart, I'm feeling very, very good. Next up, you have Dalton Kincaid. And folks, I got to tell you what, this team ultimately ends up running a lot of 12-man personnel. So we need a guy that could be an absolute threat when it comes into pass catching. And like it or not, however you feel about Dalton Kincaid, he had an exceptional rookie season. And last year, Josh Allen and him had quite a bit of chemistry issues, and he was playing through a knee injury ever since the Detroit Lions game, right? So I think a lot of the flack that he gets or that he deserves, or with anybody going out there and saying, oh, he's a first round bust, be patient. Be patient indeed. I have a feeling he's about to take that next step up. And he is the best pass catching tight end that we currently have on said roster. He fills that role. And if he can even get close to what he did during his rookie season, don't sleep on this man for being, again, the second pass catcher on this roster to have the second best receiving metrics out of any pass catcher on said squad. Have Dawson Knox, have Jackson Hawes, great blockers. Like I said, a lot of 12-man personnel, solid in the overall run offense. I feel very good about this room as well. And then when it comes into offensive line, right? Again, top 3 unit last year in run blocking and pass protection. You have Deion Dawkins, you have David Edwards, Connor McGovern, Osiris Torrance, and Spencer Brown. Thank God we stayed healthy last year, right? That was the one thing that I believe really set this team aside and why we were able to succeed so much on the ground as we did. Um, as far as depth, I love it, right? Like, look at Tylen Grable. How high were we on Tylen Grable last year, especially during training camp prior to said injury? I have a feeling that he is about to skyrocket as far as production. Same thing with Alec Anderson. Like, he is our sixth man, a former undrafted free agent. And Buffalo likes to run a lot of sort of jumbo package, if you will. Solid blocker, solid depth piece. He can move all over the offensive line, specifically in the interior. But I do feel pretty good about that. Chase Lunt and Ryan Vandemark and Kendrick Green, not a bad offensive line unit. Depth out like crazy. I feel solid about it. Next up, we have defense, right? And I got to tell you what, I feel really good about this. But some of the biggest surprises that I have seen, look at this. You have Jordan Hancock, the slot corner that we ultimately ended up picking up in the draft during the 5th round, who is listed as a corner, but right now on the depth chart, he is listed as a free safety. So it sounds, at least initially, that Buffalo wants to really see what he can do in the free safety position, a safety in which that we want to excel in coverage. I have a feeling that this is going to be an open competition right between Cam Lewis and right between Jordan Hancock, who ultimately end up making this roster. Only one of these two are going to lock this in. But I do find it interesting that now we have 3 guys that fill in that safety role. I don't see Damar Hamlin winning this, right? Last year, we ran a lot of Taylor Rapp, and also we did end up running a lot of Cole Bishop tandems, especially in the playoffs and toward the back half of the season. But again, like, those are 2 strong safeties. I wouldn't mind throwing an additional partner out there to Taylor Rapp or Cole Bishop, whoever. Now, whether or not it's Derek Forrest, whether or not it's Jordan Hancock, or whether or not it's Damar Hamlin, who proves everybody wrong once again, I'm feeling pretty damn good. Like, next up, we have edge rushing, right? You have Greg Rousseau, you have Landon Jackson on the depth chart, you have Javon Solomon right as our left defensive end, and then Joey Bosa. For the love of God, if that dude can stay healthy, man, the sky is the limit. I'm looking at AJ Epinesa, and I'm still wondering if he's going to be a roster casualty or maybe he's traded within the next couple of weeks. Who knows? I think that he's still very much a question mark of whether or not he is going to be on the Buffalo Bills. Love the interior. Again, as many of you know, I do wish that we ultimately ended up having a bit more in the one tech department, right? Like, you do have Daquan Jones. Then you have TJ Sanders, right, who is not a true one tech. You have Dwayne Carter, who is not a true one tech. Zion Laug, who is not making this team. But as far as like true 3 techs, as far as pass rushing interior defensive linemen, man, we got those. All right. We have Ed Oliver. We have TJ Sanders. We have Dwayne Carter. We have Larry Ogunjobi. Of course, once he's off of the suspension train, I'm feeling pretty good about the interior. I just wish we had a bit more in the one tech department. But let's just cross our fingers and hope that Daquan Jones can stay healthy for the most part. Same thing when it comes into linebacker. I didn't necessarily see us going out and grabbing an additional linebacker, largely because I felt like we were fine. And we do run the nickel defense where only 2 linebackers are out on the field in the first place, and corners are a different story. Love what we're bringing to the table in the corner position. So overall, I look at this roster, I look at this squad, and what I see, guys, is the most complete roster from a depth perspective that we have had in quite some time. If Buffalo loses out on a player for an injury for a couple of games, I'm not going to be sitting there sweating and looking at this guy as an absolute liability on virtually every single position group. Say that I had like my biggest worry is if Daquan Jones goes down, because I don't really have a lot of confidence in anybody that could take his role. If, for example, so we needed to fill in with a different one tech D, maybe that could be it. Um, Safety, I suppose, but I feel better about safety. Wide receiver, I feel good. Like literally, so I'm looking at this roster where it stands. And the only thing that I genuinely believe is my biggest concern is depth at the one tech defensive tackle position. And that's a great place to be because no matter how much money your organization has, folks, no matter how hard your front office works to fill the holes of each and every single offseason, it's not sustainable and it's not realistic to assume that your team is going to be able to fill each and every single hole with top quality talent. Sometimes it needs to be a give and a take. Whether or not the Bills wanted to prioritize certain position groups where they could excel and then roll the dice on around mediocre talent in specific positions, there's always going to be at least one question mark on a roster, even the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Each and every single team has a question mark, has a liability. But I think Brandon Beane in this front office, for the most part, all tied up with a nice little red bow with the Elijah Moore signing yesterday, makes me feel very good about how this team has been constructed. So, guys, this is the portion of the episode where I end up transitioning over to my live chat audience where they get to take control of the conversation, right? For me to easily decipher between questions and statements, please label them accordingly. If, for example, you have a submission with a question, please begin it with a Q dash. If you have a statement, S dash would be ideal. So that way, anybody that is listening to the pre-recorded version of this episode or listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts will have a more enjoyable time sort of listening. Thank you so much for that. Right before we hop into the live chat, giant shout out to William Mattar, folks. #1 car accident attorney in the state of New York. Say, for example, that you were ever hurt in a car, you better call William Mattar, folks. I would never wish this on my worst enemy, but if, for example, you sustained an injury during a sort of car accident, it is so important to make sure you have the right representation, and William Mattar is the guy to call. Shout out to William for sponsoring this channel. Man, I'm feeling pretty damn good. I'm feeling pretty damn good about this statement. I still want to get another player at safety because I feel like we kind of still lack depth in that position. So depth is really not much of a concern here. It just depends on what you feel about some of the players that we're plugging and playing, right? Like we saw that Jordan Hancock was added on the depth chart as free safety. But here's the deal. Just because somebody can play free safety does not mean that they should play free safety, right? So I can conduct CPR on somebody. Does that mean that I should be in the operating room? Absolutely not, right? Just because you know how to do something does not mean that you should be doing it professionally, is something how I look at it. And Derek Forrest, while he had his upside a couple of years ago, it's been a while since he's been a contributor. So I want to say it's been since 2022, I think was the last time that he was actually playing well. And largely he was sidelined due to an injury. And then he was sidelined due to a complete scheme, like transition from when Dan Quinn took over in Washington. So I could certainly see the concern there. I suppose free safety might be an issue, but let me tell you one thing that should make you feel a bit better. Us drafting Max Hairston, that dude is fast as hell, right? Like runs a 4.29. That guy's an insurance policy for any safety that might have trouble in coverage, right? Because 9 times out of 10, especially with Max Harrison's recovery speed, he's going to be their security blanket for quite a bit. So that's ideal. Now, with obviously, we would like to make sure that we had a better name there. I totally get it, but I could probably agree with you. Um, so I could probably agree with you that that would be an issue. Red, White, and Bill saying we didn't draft better coaching, so the same result will happen. Remember, we had the number 1 ranked overall D and gave up 42 in the 13-second game. Yeah, but like we were pretty injured though as well. So depth was a massive concern. We don't have much high-end star level talent other than Josh. Depth for days and days though, and depth is where we're at, man. Look, like how I look at it is that last year, while it's not something that I think we should be flexing, right? Like we should not be flexing this specifically. But especially compared to last year's team, we have a better team this year. And look how far we were able to go. And this year, I think that we'll be able to easily overcome quite a bit of the injuries that could be brought to the table. Let me see. We have Carly has come in and said, so Elijah Moore is so excited about being signed by the Bills. I guarantee that he has his best season ever. Look, it's great because several of us that were hoping for a day 3 wide receiver, and myself included, and so I wanted Jalen Royals, and so I wanted Kyle Williams, say, for example, that he would be able to fall to us. So you look at, like, really, like, how it's all, like, shed the light. And so Elijah Moore is better than a day 3 wide receiver immediately. Maybe not long term, but as far as immediate impact, as far as somebody that has proven that he can succeed in the NFL, even with a carousel of bums, like right at the quarterback position, I feel like we'll be okay. We have Dexter Gaming. Dan, mark my word, Kincaid will be good this year, and my reason is he can focus on receiving game since we have Knox and Haas for blocking. Bill's depth is key for the season, 1,000%. It's really how I reflect on everything, man. Like, I look at how we lose, so especially right within these previous playoff blunders, and it has everything to do with a giant fall off in quality of play from our personnel when our starter goes down with an injury. That's all it is. Right? So we have Christian Benford carted off, or we had Terrell Bernard out, or Matt Milano out, for example, and you just see a massive downturn, right? Like now I feel a bit more comfortable in depth just based off of familiarity and somebody that can at least slow the bleeding. I'm not anticipating that these depth pieces are going to play anywhere close to our starters, but at least like filling in the gap, or at least being marginally better than the depth that we had last year. I don't need the guy sitting behind Christian Benford to be Christian Benford. I don't. But I need him to be better than what Kyer Elam was last year, right? Like, I don't want a massive drop off. I'd rather just see like a drop off of 20 to 25% rather than a drop off of 70 to 75%, which is where we saw quite a bit of that, particularly in our secondary. And I'm feeling pretty good now. Is anyone concerned about Elijah Moore in the locker room given his past issues? I'm honestly not. I think coming to Buffalo can change him. So what helps is, say, for example, you do end up signing a diva. And so I'd say he is for the most part, right? He's definitely a diva. And so he forced his way out of like New York. But like then again, like who wouldn't want to force themselves out of the Jets, right? But it's helpful that he's on a 1-year deal, right? So he's not going to be one that's going to be like, oh, yeah, like I want out of here, blah, blah, blah. He's not going to be doing that, right? Like he's on a 1-year prove it deal right now. And his contract is laden with incentives that he needs to hit. So I'm not so much concerned about him being a diva. I'm really not. Statement might be a hot take, but 4 of our 5 wide receivers will have at least 750 yards, and 3 of them get to 1,000. And Cook gets a career high in yards at 1,200 and gets 5 touchdowns. Josh gets first 5K yards and 40-plus touchdowns. Damn. So a back-to-back MVP season is what we're looking at. I am not aware of any locker room issues with Moore. Then again, it's not like I followed him a whole lot either. He did like force his way out of New York. And like, if like you look at some of his Twitter activity, it sort of strangely resembles so what we have seen from Stephon Diggs, like right with his Twitter activity. But again, it's helpful because this dude, he has been signed to a 1-year deal. So like so what's he gonna say? Right? Like, oh, like I want to be traded out of here. Like, dude, like you're still on a 1-year deal, right? And like he knows that this is an everybody eats type offense. So it's not like he's coming in there shocked. Dan, I want to think big picture. And do you think the Bills can be the number 1 seed team in the AFC? So it's tough, man, right? Because like when it comes into various predictions, and so I'm sure a lot of you guys already ended up seeing my division standings prediction where I had the Buffalo Bills win the division and I said that we would be the 1 seed, but it's tough, right? Like that's why I hate doing them, but of course I have to because it is the off season and there's nothing to talk about and it's fun to talk about as well, but it's really tough to see how the playoff seeding is this early because number 1, like we don't know like what these teams are going to look like, right? So many moving pieces when it comes into predicting how an NFL team is going to play. Because number 1, like you see all these new acquisitions, maybe some of these guys end up getting hurt. Like maybe some of these teams that we all crowned as a Super Bowl contender loses their quarterback week 3, right? Or maybe some of these teams that we thought were absolute ass just end up completely turning it around and it's just a massive culture shift and they shock the world, right? It's tough for it. But do I think that this Buffalo Bills team has the personnel to get the number 1 overall seed? I mean, you're damn right, right? Like last year, we were undefeated at home. And yes, we have a hard home schedule this year, but I got to tell you what, it's very hard to beat Buffalo at home. It really, really is. I think that goes to our advantage. Out of all of the teams that we play in our home stadium, thank God we're at home, baby. That's what I'm talking about. With more signing, I think it's safe to say bye-bye LaVisca when camp comes around. So I wouldn't be so sure about that, and it's not because I think LaVisca is a good wide receiver. He is not. He's a really good kick returner. He's a really good kick returner. So it just depends, right? So it depends on who wins that competition. And so is it Codrington or will it be LaVisca Chenault? So I think Codrington doesn't bring anything to the table from a defensive side of things, right? Like, yes, he's a contributor on special teams, obviously, but I think you need to look at like what's the best value pick for you. So do I think that LaVisca Chenault is a better receiver that Codrington is a cornerback? You're damn right I do. So, but that's really not saying much because I don't think LaVisca Chenault is a very good wide receiver. But I think he's a better receiver than Codrington is a cornerback. So I think LaVisca Chenault has a pretty good opportunity of making this team exclusively for kick returning situations. And so I love a lot of our picks, but just to play the other side, what happens if the D still chokes? Oh, well, so I guess we just get pissed off, right? It's so theoretically we did end up addressing what our weaknesses were last year, right? And that is lack of speed right within the secondary and shit depth. But then again, like we're not going to know until we see it executed. Say that the defense chokes, then I mean, so we need Josh Allen to go out there and take that 30 plus points a game to 35 plus points a game and carry. And the thing is that yes, the defense could choke every now and again, but here's the deal. Like we cannot afford both sides of the ball to have off weeks. Right? Like we need to make sure that one of our units is always taking control and always being dominant. We can't go out there flat where the offense doesn't show up one day and the defense doesn't show up. Like one of them needs the carry. It happens all across the league. But I think ultimately what we ended up doing in free agency and in the draft, I think that depth is fine. Like when it comes to our starters, I have more confidence in the Buffalo Bills starters on defense than anybody. Right? Like I love our starters. Problem is, if somebody gets injured, how does our play look? So that's kind of my biggest thing right there. We have John Mitchell. What do you see for the 2026-2027 season, Dan? What if Buffalo falls this year, and do you see Sean McDermott getting fired? As much as we would want him to be fired, I don't think that Terry Pagula is ever going to fire him, dude. No. So I think the only way that Sean McDermott ever gets fired would be if he ends up finishing below 500 like more than 2 years in a row. I think that would be the only way that this ownership would. And trust me, listen, I know that if, for example, we lose in the playoffs again, everybody in Buffalo is going to be in this chat being like, oh, we need to fire him. But whether or not that I agree with you, it's pointless because Terry Pagula is never going to do it. He's never going to do it, especially since he owns the damn Buffalo Sabres. And do you really think that he looks at that other acquisition of his or that other asset and he's just like, well, okay. So we have the Buffalo Bills that always win their division, and they made it to the AFC Championship twice. So damn close, like seconds and just super gaff plays here and there. No, look. So we could all demand that he's fired until we're blue in the face. But guys, I'm just going to continue to tell you this. He's not going to get fired unless he goes like back-to-back seasons below 500. I think that's how it works. If he continues to go in the division round, right? Like averages one playoff win. Like dude has only ever lost in the playoffs in the wild card round once, and that was the first time. Well, actually twice. Never mind. I always forget about that Jacksonville 9-6 game, which fucking sucked. But since that first Josh Allen appearance, it's always been at least divisional. And we've made it to the AFC Championship twice. And we have the best winning percentage, second best winning percentage in the past 6 years in the league by itself. Like we are one of the most consistent teams right in the league. And there is only one Super Bowl winner, right, folks? No other team except for the Kansas City Chiefs has a better winning percentage than the Buffalo Bills for the past 5 to 6 years. And I'm not sitting here defending Sean McDermott for that because we all want a Lombardi trophy. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tell you there's no way that Terry Pagula is going to fire him unless he goes back-to-back seasons missing the playoffs. It's just how it is. It's how it is. So that's why I don't really like to have these conversations of, oh my God, should Sean McDermott get fired? Because I'm just setting myself up for disappointment because it's not going to happen. It's just how it is. And Josh Allen didn't play. So within the Jags game, I know. I did not say that he did. We have Mr. Beast fan's mom. I still don't think that we have a good enough team for the Eagles. You know, if we want to win a Super Bowl, we got to need something to go against the Eagles. Well, I feel like that we're looking a little too far ahead here. He took Tyrod Taylor and put us in the playoffs. Give the man a break. And Baltimore, dude, listen, man, I'm going to need you to really start to look at and see yourself in the mirror. So the Buffalo Bills are to the Baltimore Ravens as the Kansas City Chiefs are to the Buffalo Bills, right? Like, yes, like y'all win in the regular season, but we always send your asses packing in the playoffs. And listen, I empathize with you because the Kansas City Chiefs do that to us as well, right? Like we always beat the Chiefs in the regular season. We're like, hell yeah, man, it's on. But then when it comes into playoffs, it's just inevitable. It's inevitable each and every single time where Buffalo ends up sending little Lamar back to his home. And so back to Cancun each and every single time, man. We're 2-0 against the Ravens in the playoffs, and they can't beat us when it matters most. So I think you might want to revisit your definition of ownership, my friend. Which is pretty solid. Bob trade rumors? No. Bob is still on the roster, except for I did not take Bob with me on my business travel. Indeed. If we make the AFC Championship against the Chiefs, and are we overcoming the hump? I mean, yeah, I would say so, metaphorically at least. And didn't Moore want out of New York because of Aaron bringing his clique of Green Bay wide receivers to Jersey? So I think he more so did it because he didn't like his utilization so right within the Jets offense, and he kind of thought that he wasn't going to be a part of it. Not so much about Aaron Rodgers. He just didn't like his utilization. Sucks for Baltimore. Not only does Allen own Baltimore in the playoffs and Mahomes, and he owns them as well. Hey, man, listen, we only have one team that owns us in the playoffs, and the Ravens have two teams that own them in the playoffs, all right? So at least we only have one. At least we only have one, bro. We got Tony is coming. Damn, my man. And so I really like our roster as well. And how do you feel about backup quarterback? And do you think Mitch can get us 2 to 3 games if Josh was hurt? So one thing I always like looking at when it comes into the backup quarterback position is that we are not alone. Like there's probably 2 teams in the NFL, maybe 3, that has a quality QB2 that has a remote chance of, say, for example, QB1 is out for 3 to 4 games, that he can go out and win 3 to 4 games. So the Bills aren't alone in this. I do think that Mitch Trubisky is one of the better backup quarterback options. And so to be completely honest with you, I really do. But yeah, like say Josh was ever out for 3, I could probably give Mitch 1 for sure, maybe 2. It just depends on like what sort of defense we're going up against, like how Joe Brady would be able to scheme around him. I'm not so much concerned about the backup quarterback position, and I probably wouldn't put a lot of thought into it. Draft pick has come in. Dan, right here, right now, have the NFL 2K5 or Madden 25, and the Twister or Jay-Z. And so Elijah is new. John Brown. Wow. Damn, dude. You have NFL 2K5 or Madden 25. Is 2K5 coming out? Yo, is NFL 2K5 really coming out? Let me see. So I didn't know that. Let me see. Oh shit. I don't know. Will it ever come back, dude? I don't know, dude. Shout out to Draft Pick for coming on in, showing a little bit of love right here, man. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Um, and so I will never be able to forget the refs from the last Chiefs playoff game on those 4th-and-1 spots. They did us dirty. They certainly did. What is your opinion on James Cook with the Bills right now? He's going to play. So one thing that I think got wiped under the news yesterday, especially since Elijah Moore was signed and especially since everybody was talking about Bean and his crash out on the radio, he did say on the Pat McAfee show that him and James Cook, or that James Cook will be playing for the Buffalo Bills, and they're still negotiating a contract for him. So he's going to play. And you know what? I really hope he has a good season. And say, for example, that Buffalo wants to extend him to a new contract. So next offseason, I'm fine with that. But if not, so I think we have a pretty good offensive line that can do our dirty work for us. Ryan has come in. How would you feel if Hamlin and Rapp went out safety battle, seeing that they were bottom 5 in terms of coverage last season? So I feel like it would be okay, right? Because here's the deal, right? So I think people live in fantasy land when they think that Sean McDermott is going out there and playing favorites, and because he feels bad about what happened to Damar Hamlin. If, for example, that Hamlin did not win the starting free safety position last year, he wouldn't have been out there, because Sean McDermott also has a job that he needs to protect. I get it. Maybe there could be certain scenarios where it's close, so with Mike Edwards and Damar Hamlin was the largest debate. So that we had right in free safety last year, right? But say, for example, that there was a significant gap, so right between them, like a significant gap. Like, so with Edwards was so much better than Damar Hamlin, then he would have been the starter. But then Hamlin was obviously better. And Edwards ultimately did end up getting hurt in training camp, where Hamlin ended up having more reps. So I suppose that's another conversation. I don't think that Hamlin is going to be starting this year. I think it's going to be more so of a Taylor Rapp and a Cole Bishop, which is less than ideal because both of them are like more true strong safeties, but that's what they were running with last year. Like maybe Derek Forrest like pops off, or maybe Hancock pops off and he's like the best free safety we've seen in quite some time. It just depends. I need to see what training camp ends up transitioning into. We have the Blazer. If you were to make one more offseason move for the Bills, what would it be? So I really don't know, man. And so I really don't know. I feel really comfortable with this roster. And like really based off of what else is available based off of positions of need. I feel like some people would say Justin Simmons, like, oh yeah, man, like let's just bring in Simmons. Like, I still feel like he'd be pretty expensive. And I'm not entirely sure that he would be able to come in here for like a 1-year deal for like $5 million. And so I still think that his ego would require at least 10 to 12 mil. I'd probably pass on. I'd probably pass on everything, to be honest with you. That's kind of where I'm right. Mikey. And so I was watching film on Hawes, and I love the selection. Excited to see what packages Brady draws up. He's a hell of a blocker. He's a hell of a special teamer. Danny Whammy, why were you not on the AFC's roundtable, and who's the biggest threat to the Bills? Not named a homosexual, F. Lamar, F. Tua. So I was not on the AFC East roundtable because I'm out of town, and I wanted to enjoy the city for a little bit last night, and I wanted to take a break. Biggest threat to the Buffalo Bills, right outside of Patrick Mahomes. So I'm really not trying to sound like a homer right now, but I feel like nobody. I mean, yeah, I feel like nobody right now. So I really don't have much of a threat for us. So I got y'all making the Super Bowl this year. I think this has to be the year. It's either go to the Super Bowl or win. We will see. Hopefully, man. Hopefully. If Dermott can't get this defense off of the field when it counts, worth the cost of talent, and so is it curtains for him. So as much as we would like to say that would be the case, I don't think that Pagula would ever do it. Safety, drop the form of the signups for the trips. And are you guys coming to Buffalo? Yeah, absolutely. Drop the form to the sign. That is going to be on the last episode of Fourth and Forever. Richie has it, and we will put that in. But it's all right, folks. That's going to have to do it for today's episode. I have some things I got to do. I am going to be leaving tomorrow back home, so I don't believe I'm going to be having an episode. I might be live tomorrow late afternoon, like when I do get back and I get situated from like all this packing, etc. But thank you so much for tuning in. Smash that like button for me if you haven't had an opportunity of doing so already. And guys, do me a favor. Say, for example, that you listen to me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I have both of those links right in my description. If y'all could, and go to follow me on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review if you enjoy the show. That would mean the world to me. I'm planning on doing some audio-only episodes eventually, so definitely make sure you're locked in and tuned in case those ever drop. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications, and I will see you next time. Peace.